And they sound pretty good, right? They sound like who you want to be because we've been convinced that we are not helping. Be happy or change yourself. These are the promises of self-help. And they sound pretty good, right? They sound like who you want to be because we've been convinced that we are not healthy, not smart, not efficient, not confident, and not happy. Well, maybe we're not. Maybe we do need help. And maybe opening that book, buy that seminar, or listen to that podcast is what we need. But the self-improvement movement has us in a chokehold. It's convinced us that we're not good enough so that we'll purchase our way into happiness. And the plan is working. The self-improvement industry was valued at approximately, in 2022, the industry was worth $38 billion and is expected to grow to around $80 billion by 2030. Americans spend a lot on it. $11 billion annually on self-improvement books, seminars, coaching apps, and personal development tools. Over 20 million self-help books are sold annually in the US. The market for personal growth apps was worth, in 2023, it was worth $1.1 billion and continues to grow, reaching around 105000 to 22000, which makes self-improvement serious financial investment. Self-improvement is a serious financial investment for some people. For those who wouldn't spend thousands on seminars and programs, they're still not off the hook when it comes to the strong influence of the self-improvement industry. The self-improvement industry has a strong grip on our bank accounts. The average consumer spends a significant amount on it, spends $200 to $500 annually on personal development resources like books and podcasts. They get us by promoting something that can elude us, which is happiness. The global pursuit of happiness has driven an increase in interest in self-help searches for how to be happy, rose by 125% over the past decade. While some in the self-help industry might have good intentions and even good ideas, there's too much room for danger. There is a long list of ways for people to become addicted to advice, to drain their bank accounts, and to convince themselves that happiness, fulfillment, and riches are all right around the corner. Diving into self-help can lead to perfectionism and burnout. Approximately 67% of people report feeling overwhelmed by the number of self-improvement strategies available. This leads to decision fatigue, paralysis. The phrase "too many cooks in the kitchen" comes to mind. We all like to think that having a finished line can be helpful, giving us something to reach for and allowing a sense of accomplishment to build inside, except when we think we should always be improving, there is no finish line. The focus on growth as an ongoing process can foster a sense of inadequacy, since perfection is always just out of reach. This insistence on never-ending improvement also leads to unrealistic standards for ourselves. The self-help gurus who have taken over people's bookshelves, social media feeds, and daily thinking often become idealized role models. Even the most well-intentioned self-help gurus evoke a sense of envy in their followers because that's the whole point. Programs also tend to highlight success stories of ultra-productive, disciplined, or happy people, which can set unattainable benchmarks for the rest of the consumers. The result is that people become hyper-focused on their flaws. Since self-help identifies areas of improvement by its nature, the movement can lead people to fixate on their shortcomings. This becomes counterproductive and harder or unhappy than they were in the first place. Numerous tools that self-help programs preach lead to an overemphasis on productivity and efficiency. We become trained to measure our worth by our output, framework specifically for professional advancement, and self-optimization ties self-worth to productivity. Therefore, if people aren't being productive, they're not succeeding. So what do we do if we're in one of these programs? We start to sacrifice things like rest and fun in order to meet our productivity goals. Does that really make us happier? The hustle culture preached in the self-help movement glorifies working harder and longer. It promotes the idea that success only comes through relentless effort. Become a type of binary thinking that you're either all in or you're out. Inevitably leads to failure. It's not uncommon with self-improving methods to find there is no room for partial progress or flexibility. You must prescribe to the method or the method will not work. These types of all or nothing goals focus on achieving grand things, but often ignore the incremental progress. We are all imperfect and we always will be. Self-improvement that is focused on always being better and better convinces us that imperfection cannot coexist with greatness. However, if we struggle on our journey with self-improvement, there is very little space in the industry for us to express it. Toxic positivity is rampant in the self-help industry. It's the voice of that influencer constantly cheering her followers on and reminding them that everything is going to be great, even when it's not. It's the book that never contains a chapter. Setbacks and negative emotions making the reader feel lost when they hit a roadblock. It's the fitness expert never accounting for injury or self-doubt along the way. We cannot realistically live in a world of constant positivity. This expectation that we can and always should be progressing and feeling optimistic is crushing the self-improvement movement. Preaches self-acceptance, but the widespread toxic positivity within it doesn't leave much room for actual self-awareness and self-care, which can often come in the form of slowing down. Social media is the perfect place to perpetuate this myth of always be improving. The self-help movement has grown exponentially on social media, allowing anyone who has an opinion and some charisma to become a guru. There have always been snake oil salesmen trying to tell consumers how to better themselves, but if you really wanted to spread your ideas, it took some legitimacy to get yourself out there. Now, a book deal or an in-person workshop isn't even necessary to gain a following. Social media also proliferates comparison culture. Self-improvement influencers often present curated, idealized versions of their lives. This creates pressure for their followers to measure up, which is an impossible task, by sharing the highlight reels of their perfect routines, habits, and achievements online. Self-help leaders can intensify the feeling of hopelessness and doubt in those seeking to make strides in their own lives. And in a way, that's the point. The more helpless people feel, the more they'll seek help, even if the help itself is making them feel helpless. The self-improvement movement provides a pleas of tools and techniques in the form of books, apps, guides, workshops, and overall strategies. This can become overwhelming for individuals who suddenly feel like they have to master their chosen method and all of its skills. As we move forward with self-help methods, we might experience FOMO, the fear of missing out. It can feel like we're not doing enough if we don't follow every single recommended practice. You might be meditating 10 minutes a day, cutting processed sugars out of your diet, and jing every evening, but you just can't find the time to also resistance train 3 times a week. In that case, is the whole method moot? It might feel that way. These rigid guidelines can discourage adaptability and self-forgiveness for occasional lapses in the program, and since self-improvement is often inherently broad and generic, it's expected that certain people won't quite fit the mold that's provided. All of this can lead to individuals blaming themselves for not being better if progress isn't achieved, or even if it is, it isn't felt. Self-blame is wrapped up in the entire ethos of self-improvement. We are meant to believe that we have total and complete control over who we are and how we go about our lives. But this type of thinking just doesn't take into account our circumstances, world, and life events, our educational or emotional backgrounds, plus the factors that are simply out of our control. By downplaying external factors, self-help guides can actually get in the way of some of the very things they say they're trying to foster. Self-awareness and authenticity by encouraging conformity and success at all costs. Self-improvement advice often emphasizes discipline and positivity over creativity and spontaneity. If we're following self-help methods to improve ourselves, we might suppress authentic behaviors or preferences that don't align with our prescribed method. In the end, we become so over-reliant on metrics, habits, and goal setting that we forget about the bigger picture. Self-improvement programs are usually about measuring progress to attain a larger goal. If we only pay attention to these measurements, we're sidelining more subjective and unconventional self-expression. We could be on a fitness journey to get stronger and suddenly discover that we love playing tennis. However, our routine is already filled with daily lifting and HIIT sessions, leaving no time for other activities. Do we sacrifice exploring something we love or are interested in just because it doesn't fit the program as much? As we want to turn to help, the industry of self-improvement has made us at times over-reliant on it. We think that following a program is the best path to whatever kind of success that we're looking for. Ultimately, success is finding independence. It could be paying off debt and securing financial freedom. It could be losing weight to be free from the grasp of a looming health issue. It could be working through trauma to find independence from depressive thoughts. But in order to find all kinds of independence, we have to think for ourselves. The business of self-improvement is relying on us staying convinced that we cannot think for ourselves. There are plenty of emotional and individual dangers in the self-improvement movement, but perhaps the biggest red flag is the sheer amount of money that self-help leaders and the industry that surrounds them make off of consumers seeking guidance. It's estimated that the monetary value of the self-improvement movement is growing at about 8% per year. This is about the same growth rate as the global clothing industry. Do we really need these books, workshops, and online seminars? As much as the clothes on our back, the commoditization of self-improvement is made possible by modern-day humans. Endless consumption, capitalism thrives on creating perpetual demand, and self-improvement products emphasize ongoing inadequacy, which encourages consumers to keep buying solutions rather than fostering a state of fulfillment. If we always think that there is something wrong with us or we're not quite where we want to be yet, we will keep buying the products that promise us to get there. This creates a capitalist productivity fetish self-improvement frameworks. Equate personal value with productivity, aligning with capitalism's focus on efficiency and output, and the constant pursuit of that efficiency and output leads to overwork, stress, and burnout, which can plague every area of capitalism. Incessantly working ourselves can be as exhausting as having a stressful day job that we have to go to every day. Just like we all struggle to define our self-worth outside of our careers, we can similarly struggle to define our self-worth outside. What if instead we were just worth something for simply being who and how we are? That idea wouldn't fit too well in the capitalistic model that self-improvement has largely adopted. Capitalism often positions happiness as something to be purchased or achieved through consumption. Feeling down? Buy some new clothes. Feeling stressed? Buy this magical calming elixir. Feeling hopeless? Buy this new course on how to create the life you want in 5 simple steps. The problem is that so many people experience cost barriers to these types of solutions. Self-improvement resources like expensive seminars or coaching programs are often accessible only to those with disposable income, exacerbating inequality. While they might be more cost-effective than individual therapy sessions, the constant need to keep purchasing workshops, books, and guides can end up breaking the bank all the same. These barriers can create an air of exclusivity for self-help methods. While self-improvement gurus advocate empowerment, its commercialization often excludes marginalized groups who might benefit the most from these tools. In turn, the exclusivity makes even the most lackluster and unproven methods seem like something to be desired. With savvy social media marketing, we can easily become convinced that buying a 10-week course from a yoga teacher and life coach we've never met is absolutely going to solve all of our problems. This isn't to say that there aren't people out there who have genuine methods and advice, but the noise can be so overwhelming that often, as with most things in a capitalistic society, those with the best selling points and marketing win. It's not uncommon to find well-marketed self-help methods filled with false promises and exploitation. There is a quick fix mentality that stresses regimented and easily digestible solutions. The problem, as mentioned, is that most solutions end up being generic and often not applicable. In monetary terms, the more broad the proposed solutions are, the more people will buy into their possibility. This can lead to predatory practices from self-proclaimed gurus. They might exploit people's vulnerabilities with overpriced, ineffective programs and prioritize profit over genuine growth. Even the most well-intentioned of us can feel the pull of capitalism and wealth, so it's no wonder that some self-help gurus end up exorbitantly wealthy. Whether it's due to the efficiency of their programs or simply that they are good salespeople often remains up for debate. Tony Robbins, famous for his coaching programs, self-improvement seminars, and business ventures, is worth about Deepak Chopra, famous for his wellness programs and speeches, has written over 90 books and has a net worth of about $600 million. 80 million. The money circulating around this industry is lying in wait for those who can find a way to market themselves and their ideas effectively. The amount of money to be gained from selling self-improvement methods often gets in the way of the goal of the methods themselves. Genuine self-improvement emphasizes personal fulfillment, relationships, and intrinsic goals. Capitalism often prioritizes extrinsic rewards like wealth, status, and material possessions. This creates inherent tension between these two value systems, and for the most part, capitalism ends up winning. Individuals who dive headfirst into self-improvement programs often end up defining themselves by the number of programs they've completed. This de-emphasizes a focus on authentic self-discovery that exists separately from any sort of prescribed method or set of ideas. Put simply, the business of self-improvement encourages us to be defined by how much money we spend on our own betterment rather than by how much better we actually feel. The truth is that working through self-help guides might actually be having a reverse effect. A 2016 study looked at the physical and neurological reaction to people consuming self-help books and found that consumers of growth-oriented self-help books presented high cortisol, the stress hormone, The study also found that consumers of problem-focused self-help books had high depressive symptoms. Even though we turn to these types of books to feel better, happier, smarter, and healthier, they physiologically and emotionally can make us actually feel worse. They create an expectation the moment we open them. As soon as you watch a video from an online self-help influencer talking about sleep hygiene, do you automatically feel pressure to have perfect sleep hygiene? Well, you're not alone. The self-help industry, which is rooted in well-intentioned goals and values but has gone off the rails, has now become an industry of expectation and pressure. So how do we balance these well-intentioned values with the misguided system that has emerged in a self-improvement movement? To reconcile the conflict between self-improvement and self-judgment, we have to ensure that self-improvement is a tool for genuine empowerment rather than reinforcement of capitalistic exploitation. If you feel yourself getting trapped in an endless cycle of purchasing seminar after seminar and watching video after video, you're most likely only going to feel worse about yourself. Instead of getting caught in perpetual consumption, try and shift focus to sustainable intrinsic growth. Perhaps there is one piece of advice or one step of guidance that really resonates with you. Try running with that one. Explore what guidance means to you instead of how it's supposed to fit into some larger agenda. If we can step outside of the industry trying to sell us on our own self-improvement, we can combine the helpful parts of self-help with our own intuition to make better choices and feel more confident in how we live our lives. It's also important to be wary of falling into the trap of perfectionism. When evaluating self-improvement programs that involve goal setting, it's easy to overlook the importance of self-compassion and acceptance. Growth is important, but growth only matters if we have the ability to keep going in life. Self-help gurus often rely on preaching the idea of optimization, whether it's maintain the perfect diet to build muscle mass or scheduling your day down to the minute to use your time most efficiently. Some of these methods might work at times, but in the long run, most people will fall into a sort of obsession. If you miss a workout or take some unscheduled time to rest, it might feel like you're failing. It might feel like you're letting yourself down. But perfection is unrealistic, and progress is often more important than our goals themselves. While a self-help program might not celebrate the wins along the way and keep you focused on the ultimate goal, recognizing small triumphs as well as setbacks and flaws is not only a healthy way to approach growth, but it's the only way to approach it that will keep us chugging along without burning out. Once you get on the self-improvement hamster wheel, it can be difficult to get off, but staying on will inevitably lead to exhaustion. If the point of any kind of self-help is to equip you with the tools to better yourself, pausing and acknowledging the importance of imperfections along the way is a key component. This kind of reflection is the only way we can retain our individuality. Unfortunately, an abundance of self-help methods assume that we are all the same and therefore that the same advice will work for all of us. Of course, there are universal experiences like doubt, loss, and anxiety, but there is never a one-size-fits-all approach to dealing with them. Instead of interpreting the words and advice in a self-help book or a post you see on TikTok as gospel, what if you sought out adaptable frameworks that you could tailor to your own needs? Ignore the exact breakfast that random fitness guy laid out on his Instagram story and do some research about a variety of healthy breakfasts so you can choose the one you'd be most excited to eat. Make the work easier for yourself instead of trying to become someone you're not. By shifting our focus away from conformity, we are able to validate the things that make us unique. Our traits, habits, and aspirations are like no one else in the world, and we should celebrate that. If you're on a self-improvement journey, take the advice that resonates and leave the rest behind so that you don't lose your individuality. Self-improvement is nothing without self-expression. Once we are able to think for ourselves and value what makes us unique, we're much less susceptible to jumping on board with any one self. Instead, we might be able to finally view the self-improvement movement for what it ideally should be. An opportunity to foster kindness towards ourselves and help us build self-esteem. Having compassion towards ourselves is an easy way to block out those overly critical and perfectionistic tendencies, and it's a great way to interrupt the profit-driven side of the industry. The downfalls of self-help are most apparent when dealing with self-help that is compulsive and prescriptive. These kinds of programs are meant to get us hooked on wanting to be better in every single possible way. They're more profit-driven than actually wanting to help the people who sign up or consume them. And like anything in a capitalistic society, once an industry has us addicted to its product, it's nearly impossible to step away from it. Is self-improvement truly dangerous? No. The industry and movement that has been built around it is. Wanting to improve is not a bad thing, but thinking we can read or watch or listen ourselves into improving is a myth we've been sold. If we can approach self-improvement with a tactful eye instead of diving into the abyss, we can take what works for us and leave behind the rest. We can recognize when we're being conned and not helped. We can lean into our authentic selves and reject conformity. And we can accept that wanting to be better doesn't mean that we aren't already good.